Welcome to Dwell on These Things, a podcast by Dwell Community Church in Columbus, Ohio, where we hear stories and examples of how God is moving in the church at Dwell and around the world.
Hey everybody, welcome in. My name's Mike Sullivan. I'm a teaching pastor on staff with Dwell Community Church, and today we're going to talk about something called life coaching. 10 years ago, Dwell's student ministry began reaching a significant number of students from under-resourced parts of Columbus, which has been fantastic. But we quickly realized many of these students need help with practical life skills like finishing high school, learning a trade, earning a degree, landing a good job, paying bills, just stuff like that. At the same time, we also realized we had a church full of, no offense, Chris, older adults with the time and expertise to help out. So we came up with this catchy title called Life Coach. And in 2014, we paired life coaches, adult life coaches, with 10 students who volunteered to receive coaching. And today there are 82 students who are actively receiving life coaching through our church. And so with me around the table today are Chris Reeder, one of our most experienced life coaches. Chris, welcome in.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you, man. Sorry to call you old. And then EJ Johnson is also here. EJ, thanks for showing up.
Hey, it's all good.
Yeah, I know
Glad to be
EJ.
here.
Yeah, EJ and I, we see each other every Wednesday because EJ's in our 18-month leadership training class, which you've just about completed.
Yep, a few more left at this point.
Yeah, very cool. So anyhow, Chris and EJ, I know you guys met together for life coaching. I can't remember though, how long was it? You guys have ended, but how long were you actually meeting for coaching?
I think maybe 2 or 3 years, I think.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a significant chunk of time.
Uh-huh.
I'm curious when you first heard about the concept of life coaching, what were maybe some of your fears or reservations connected to diving in?
Well, I remember you brought it up to me, like you said, in 2014.
Yeah.
And I was pretty excited about it because I'd been doing the Renegade ministry with you, which involved kids from kindergarten to 5th grade. And you had mentioned working with older students to do more practical life coach things. And I was excited about it, but it was, fears or reservations would be, gee, what do we work on,
Right.
What kinds of stuff is the most important? How do I know what needs to be done, or, what kind of knowledge needs to be imparted to the guys I was working with?
Yeah, and just to fill in a little bit on what Chris is saying, Chris and I were involved in a ministry to low-income kids, like from 2008 or so up to 2014, and we both kind of became aware of this need, and we're kind of in on the ground floor of trying to figure out what to do. And that was one of the big questions. I remember that. Well, we know we need to help, but how do we help?
Yeah.
EJ, I'm also curious about you. How did you first hear about life coaching, and what were some of your maybe initial thoughts or even reservations about it?
I heard about it initially from the guy I was studying with who had been teaching me a lot about the Bible at the time.
Yeah.
But, I definitely, when he was like, yeah, you should probably get a life coach, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I need this. Maybe I don't. I got people I probably could ask. I don't know. But ultimately, I think the biggest thing was just the fear of am I going to be this might be embarrassing for me that my functional life isn't that great.
Right.
And I was pretty scared of having to share that with someone else. So that was probably the biggest thing, though.
Man, completely understandable. But here we are. You agreed to be a coach. You agreed, EJ, to receive coaching. What finally kind of tipped the scales and made you guys decide to just throw in and do this?
I really wanted a car so that I could, well, I mean, not only could I do like high school group and things like that, but I also like really wanted a car to be able to serve people better. And I don't know, I just really wanted to be a better and more effective servant. I was already thinking about how much people were just driving me one place to another. And I was like, I could probably ease the burden of this if I just had my own car and had stuff together.
And then with the car, there's stuff that you have to figure out, like licenses and like driving tests and all that stuff, insurance and whatnot.
Yep.
Yeah. Chris, how about you? What made you finally say, I'll do it?
Well, it just sounded like a really awesome opportunity to help, guys with practical aspects of growing up, and being an adult. And, I worked with one guy from 14 to the time EJ and I hooked up. And so, helped him learn how to drive, helped him, learn how to budget, things like that.
Okay. So this is actually, when you met with EJ, he might have been the third guy.
Second.
Or the second guy. I'm curious to hear, did you guys do the cones and the whole driving thing?
Man, we did.
I want to hear about how'd that go. Let's hear about it.
Yeah.
I failed that test so many times. We probably, I'm just throwing a number. I don't know what your number is, Chris, but probably like upwards of like 20. I don't know. Maybe I'm exaggerating.
Well, we set the cones up and practiced the maneuverability over and over and over again on many days. Yeah. And the driving part, whenever I'd pick EJ up to go somewhere, I'd say, "Here, you drive."
Yep.
And you weren't terrified, Chris? You were cool with that?
Yeah. Well, I think we went and practiced in a parking lot for a little bit just so you'd get because I remember when I was learning how to drive, the biggest shock for me was the actual being in a moving vehicle.
Yeah.
Getting used to that. So I think maybe we went down to Whetstone High School and drove around there because it's a huge parking lot, so you could get the feel of what it's like to be behind the wheel and have it be going, and I know I had you do things like speed up, slow down, park, drive, turn around, things like that. And I think once you got the feel for how a car operates, we hit the road.
Yeah, it was definitely really scary because I'm just kind of like, and my grandma always goes like, it's like riding a bike. I was like, no, it is not. There is a lot of things I have to move and get out of the way.
Yeah.
But it took a while for me to get comfortable, but having Chris there who knows how to drive, it definitely made it a lot more easier for me to understand and take my time through it. So
Totally.
Yeah.
I wish I could have been there to see some of those early cone attempts. That would have been cool.
Oh, you'd be cracking up, man.
Yeah. So a lot of people have heard about this within our church. Folks listening outside our church know virtually nothing about it.
Mm-hmm.
Try to help them understand, if both you guys could, the scope of life skill areas that you guys worked on together. Because you had to stretch it, 2 to 3 years. That's a lot of hanging out. What were some of the big areas that you guys tried to tackle?
Well, I think the one that took up a lot of time was obviously getting a driver's license. And one advantage was that when we started working together, EJ was already 18, which meant he just had to pass. He just had to learn how to operate a car and take the test. It wasn't like under 18 when you have to take formal lessons and classes and stuff like that. So we had that to do, and I remember doing stuff like, going to Aldi's and talking about how to, buy groceries to, save money, make your own food instead of, going out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Chris is a great cook, by the way. I've had dinner at Chris's house. You do any actual cooking? lessons?
No,
Okay.
but didn't you at one of the beach trips learn how to make stuff with chicken breasts or something?
Yeah, I did.
Didn't-
There was a day where I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to do this on my own, and
Yeah.
made a bunch of food with chicken breast. I shared it with my younger brother. He still thinks I'm a horrible cook, but we like shared it together, and he was like, oh, this actually ain't half bad. I was like, yeah, I know. Like my life coach told me I should buy this much, and like make sure to pay attention to how much of this I need. Yeah, so that was really cool. I think to chime in a little bit here, I think something that was really important to me, and I still use it, is the budgeting tool that you gave me all those years ago. I still use it till
Great.
this
Wow.
day.
That's great.
It's like a Excel sheet that kind of like helps me calculate stuff, including like giving, and it has verses in there that calls me back to like why am I going through budgeting in the first place and why it's important.
Yeah.
So that was extremely helpful, in addition to like the driving and like paying attention to like how I'm actively spending my money at the time.
You did eventually obtain a car, I assume.
Yeah, I
And
did.
What was that, like a big savings project, or how did that finally turn out?
I just kind of asked around, and there was a guy who was like, "Hey, you can buy this off me for really cheap," and I did, but I kind of was a little goofy still. So like I kind of like messed up, left the car back there a little bit too long.
Yeah.
So I had to like go and get that stuff fixed, and now I got a nice ride now. I'm floating around and still doing high school groups. So
Gotcha. I know fits and starts are part of this. When you cruise in as a coach to try to help transmit a life skill, and as a person under coaching, you're receiving that. You have periods of success and setbacks too. How did you guys kind of roll with the ups and downs over the course of your coaching time together?
I don't recall any like downs. I mean, we just kind of moved forward. I felt, maybe the only kind of, fit as opposed to fit and start was with the car,
The car
because
itself.
I think you got it before you even had your license, because
Yeah.
it was available. It was a real beater, but it ran.
yeah,
And just because it sat behind your house for a while, the battery went dead,
yep,
and it wouldn't recharge. We couldn't jump it, so we had to go buy a new battery after you'd gotten your license and were ready to start driving it around.
yep. Yeah, that definitely was a tough period. It's pretty funny because it was self-inflicted, but it's still also just kind of like, okay, like, what do I do now? I have the car part, and I have, the car, but not the part. But like, what do I do now? And, Chris still stuck in there with me, and I was feeling pretty discouraged. Like I was riding high, I got the license, then it's like, all right, now the car doesn't start.
Right.
And my brain's like, okay, well, here's something new. And it was largely discouraging at the moment, but he kind of reminded me like, oh, just need a new battery. Maybe if it comes down to it, might have to save it for an alternator or something like that. But like ultimately, this is still possible. You still could be driving within the next few weeks. Like, this isn't an end all be all.
It's these little things that can be kind of a deal breaker for folks, and having someone there to just get you over the hump sounds like that made a huge difference. I wonder also, could you guys maybe fill in, and maybe EJ, hearing from you on this would be good. Just walk us through a typical coaching session, just one of your hangouts. What did you and Chris do together? What was it like?
So he would pick me up, whether that be like early in the morning or maybe in the afternoon after I was done with work or school or whatever. And we'd go get coffee. He'd talk like, all right, this is what we're going to do. Like, we're going to practice driving, or we're going to sit down and like look at this budgeting tool so we can figure out how much money you have altogether. Or, hey, have you grocery shopped? And if I didn't grocery shop, we'll go grocery shopping. Right. Ultimately, by the end of the day, we're probably doing the maneuverability again.
Right.
But I still found it like extremely helpful, though. It was just really nice to, like, this guy isn't judging me and how my habits. He's actually trying to improve a lot of my things. And I could tell that he cared. Like, he was like, yeah, if there's ever a time you're free, you can come over. Or, hey, if there's a time you're free, we can just go for a drive and figure this out. Like, it was just very helpful. And the time that we had was just like, it was just straight up just serving. one another, honestly.
Wow. Just, yeah, it sounds like accessibility was huge. Chris, you have anything to add to that? What a typical coaching hangout was like?
Well, I just remember, obviously learning to drive, doing the maneuverability. I remember going to thrift stores, because you needed some clothes. And so we'd go to a thrift store and, look at some decent looking threads that he could afford. And I remember going grocery shopping and, saying, this is a good deal, buy this. You can cook with these things. I remember going over the budgeting stuff, and I think didn't we also go over some of the stuff for Columbus State? Like the TRIO program and stuff like that.
We did. We went over the TRIO program and FAFSA and like what all that stuff even.
What
meant.
is the TRIO program?
So the TRIO program, I believe it's I know it's a program at Columbus State. I don't know if other colleges have it, but Columbus State has a program called TRIO where they essentially like assist with not only like filling out FAFSA and things like that, but also like looking for other scholarships and grants that you can get.
Student loan and assistance, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Whilst you're going to Columbus State. And sometimes they'll even try to find a way to stretch it if you're going like OSU or was it Ohio Dominican, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like Capital.
Mm-hmm.
So like it was extremely helpful. I mean, there was a few times where I was like, oh man, I got to get my mom out here so we can sit down and do this. And Chris was like more than ready to help. But
so that opened the door to going to Columbus State.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
You guys have been together a while. EJ, you know Chris pretty well.
Yeah.
What do you think he needs help with, life skills wise, now that you know him a little bit better?
I don't know, man. He's got it figured out.
I got some thoughts, but I wondered if you had any discernment here.
I know one thing because we talked about this.
Yeah.
I've always had a hard time with budgets. I've never really had one, and I would say, do as I say, not as I do, EJ.
Oh, yeah. There was a few times that happened.
Yeah, like, okay, this is what you should do. This is what I should have done.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I would definitely agree. Yeah, I would agree with that. There was a time where we sat down to the budget, and he was like, huh, I might have to run through this myself, actually.
yeah.
That's great. So now, EJ, you are actually a leader in this church in Dwell.
Mm-hmm.
You're leading a high school group, which is a dynamic group of folks, co-ed group, reaching kids in different high schools around Columbus. You also are on a part of a college home church leadership team.
Mm-hmm.
You've been in those roles for a little while now. I'm curious, how do you think life coaching has prepared you or maybe enhanced your ability to lead in this church?
Definitely. I'll go through high school and college for this, but in high school, like it's like a lot of my students are from similar situations as me, so they don't know how to budget. They don't.
Right.
Some of them don't even know how to study, let alone like even like, okay, like how much those groceries cost. Like a lot of that stuff isn't really like in their head yet. And, I share some of the wisdom that Chris gave me that's extremely beneficial. I'm not life coaching them per se.
Right.
But if they don't fully understand like a concept like college, or if they don't fully understand a concept like trying to get a license and stuff like that, I'm like, all right, well, like I know a little bit about it. We can talk about it, which has been pretty beneficial. And I've even had like parents go like, thank you that you did that. But in terms of college, I got young dudes coming into our group and they don't have those things together. So it gives me an opportunity to talk to them about it and just be like, hey, man, like, have you ever thought of budgeting? And they're like, well, why is that important? Well, your giving's important.
Yeah.
And that requires money. So you should make a budget. That's it all pieces together.
Right.
So I would say those two aspects for sure are probably like the biggest ones.
Yeah, I could see that totally. Just it gives you another dimension working with folks. Chris, anytime you dive into a ministry, there are unexpected, unanticipated benefits. I know I've found that to be true. Just wondering, It's been several years. You were one of the first life coaches. You've been doing this for a while. What are some of the ways you've personally benefited from doing things like you've done with EJ?
Well, I think really the most rewarding, exciting thing is seeing guys like EJ become leaders in the church, go from being enthusiastic students of the word and starting in ministries and living in a ministry house and have that growth just keep going, and seeing it just really makes me happy to see EJ as a leader now. A guy I'm working with right now has been asked to sit in on the leaders team of his home church. The first guy I worked with he's just stayed serving God, and now he's married. He's got 40-hour a week job with benefits, and now he's like, I think I'm gonna go back to school. So it's just really exciting to see these guys, make these awesome decisions that are, really bearing fruit.
This might turn out to be some of the most significant work you do your entire life.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about the long-term ripple effect on those guys' lives, man. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I all along I felt like, I was just doing this one part, but for instance, EJ and it was Sam, right?
Yeah.
We're really doing the heavy lifting spiritually, and I was just kind of coming along beside him, and I think that was an exciting thing for me.
Yeah. EJ, I was wondering if you could look into the future from your vantage point. You're leading a high school group, leading a college group. You're right on the edge, the kind of the vanguard of watching a lot of people come in to our church, coming to Christ, following Christ, people from all over the city, all kinds of backgrounds. When you think about the next decade or two in our church, what role do you see life coaching playing? Or, what do you think about life coaching is going to be crucial to helping us advance with some of the folks that we're reaching now?
I think it's going to be significant. I mean, I'm thinking about just like a lot of my students and even like other high school group students. It's like a lot of these guys like do have incredible spirituality and incredible thoughts that they have, and it's significant. But like then they come into a college setting and they don't have these skills, and it's pretty easy for them to feel discouraged and wiped out. So I would say like life coaching is going to be significant. I mean, it's going to be large in the next few years.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's a really good point.
You guys are you're basically participating in something that obviously we're super pumped about as a church, and I do think we're going to need more coaches and people under coaching over time. And I wonder what you guys would say to people who are reluctant to get involved, either on the coaching end or the receiving coaching end.
Well, as a coach, I think I would definitely recommend somebody becoming a coach. But I think the thing, it's like they would definitely have to count the cost, because it's super rewarding, but it's also, it's time consuming.
Yeah.
You're laying yourself out, helping people through it's a difficult time of life, whether you come from a middle-class background or, a disadvantaged background or whatever. It's hard. It's a hard time of life anyway, and then you're really wanting to help them, get through it. And I think what you're saying, EJ, about, I hadn't even thought about it, but the idea, living in a ministry house and learning how to budget your money and study and put time aside to go to school and do Bible studies and things like that. I never thought about that, but that is huge to learn how to do that.
Yeah, I think what I would say, at least to the person who's thinking about life coaching, and then also speaks to the person who's thinking about being life coached. The thing that I would say to the person who's thinking about it is like, I agree with Chris. It is time consuming. It is, you're putting yourself out there. It might cost you money. A thing that I did that was kind of crazy. I accidentally backed up and might have messed up his muffler. But like things like that may happen. But ultimately, like thinking about your role, thinking about like what has God asked us to do, and that's to serve other people.
Right.
That's ultimately what you're asked to do. And if you're burdened to serve people, if you're burdened to serve people and watch them grow, like then there shouldn't be anything holding you back. Like you should just go for it and see what happens. And then to the person who's thinking about, should I get a life coach? Yes. Like ultimately, yeah, you should.
Yeah.
Like primarily because like things are only getting more expensive. Financial issues are becoming more and more of a growing problem, especially in the inner city. And it's like some of these skills are going to be so significant in your life. So it's best to just try to get these things figured out and knocked out so that you're able to capably serve people in your home church. And even if you're close to like studying with someone yourself, now you have something to offer to the table. So why would you not?
Yeah. Having, being able to land a job, a living wage, raising a family, not having to work 80 hours a week at 3 part-time jobs, but having a job that leaves room for ministry. There's so many advantages. EJ, what are you doing now work-wise?
Work-wise? Well, my job says that I can't say specifically where I work.
He works for the CIA.
Yeah. Nah. I am a bank representative for a bank. That is what I have to say, or
That's
I get
all
in
you
trouble.
need to know.
That's all. It's a need-to-know basis. No, I do that, and I'm essentially a banker. And I help people like with their accounts and stuff like that. I actually like my ambition for working there is to help, smaller businesses grow, which is in a weird way. I'm life coaching in a weird way. I even recently sat down with my brother. We talked about stuff because he's thinking about starting his own business and things like that. So it's like even my job pieces of life coaching has impacted me, it's so crazy.
That's great. Very cool. So EJ, Chris, what else, just anything else you have to share with folks listening in just about your whole experience, anything you felt like you really wanted to say?
Well, it's been one of the most exciting and rewarding ministries I've ever been in. It's exciting to see, like I said before, it's exciting to see guys who, like EJ, who want to serve the Lord and want to grow spiritually and want to know the Word and everything, to see them thrive, And I remember being really excited about the fact that EJ came to Christ. It was in high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and has just continued to grow since then. And I don't know. I've felt honored and I just found it really rewarding to be part of EJ's spiritual growth. It's just been super exciting to see him.
That's great.
Thriving and moving forward and taking his place in leadership. It's pretty awesome.
Very cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I also feel honored to have had you as a life coach, and I know you're still doing awesome work with people. I hear it from other people who's like, "Hey, I'm getting life coached by this guy Chris." I was like, "Yeah, you're in good hands. You're gonna be great. You got it."
Yeah.
I think if there was one thing I'd really want to say, I would say that like this church having that is so significant. It's so significant, and it's like one of those things in my life that I genuinely think that if I did not do, I don't know how I'd be doing at this point. I think things would legit be a mess for me. So I think I would implore people to really, really think about getting into this kind of ministry because it is really big.
Wow. Thanks, both of you. EJ, Chris, thanks a bunch for kind of opening up to us about this whole experience and just being with us on the podcast today. If you're out there listening and you enjoyed this episode and you want to learn more about life coaching at Dwell, you should check out our website, dwellcc.org, and type life coaching into the search box. You'll find a page with a lot more information about how to get a coach and how to be a coach. So I hope you check that out. And also, if you subscribe or follow this podcast, Dwell on These Things, you'll get a heads up when future episodes are released. So thanks a bunch to everybody out there and to you, Chris and EJ, for chiming in on this.